Okay, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're jumping into quite a deep dive, actually. It's centered around a book that's really had a remarkable journey, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. The subtitle, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment, definitely tells you something about its ambition.
It really does. And it's one of those books, isn't it? Started quietly, kind of word of mouth in smaller communities, bookstores.
Yeah, and then just exploded.
Completely. Reached this huge audience. And then, of course, getting attention from people like Oprah Winfrey just sent it, well, global.
Absolutely. And the material itself, the source, it comes from Tolle's own profound spiritual experience. It's presented very directly.
Very practical, often in a Q&A format, right?
Yeah.
Based on questions from his seminars, retreats.
Exactly, which makes it feel less like abstract philosophy and more like direct answers.
Yeah, it tries to cut through all that and get straight to the point, tackling those big questions about life's suffering.
Right. So our mission today, as we pull out some key ideas from these excerpts, is to really unpack that core message. What does living in the now actually mean? And why does this book present it as, well, the absolute key to freedom, to enlightenment? There's even this statement right in the book that kind of sets the stage. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a statement to start with.
So let's unpack that. Where do we begin?
Okay, well, the very first big idea, and maybe the most challenging one up front, is this. Identifying with your mind, that constant stream of thoughts.
The voice in the head.
That voice. Identifying with that is presented as the single biggest obstacle, the barrier to experiencing reality, your true self, or what the book calls enlightenment.
So all that inner chatter,
Yeah.
that's not actually me. It's the problem.
Precisely. That's the realization the source points to. And the first step towards getting past that barrier, the book suggests, is to start watching the thinker.
Watching the thinker.
Yeah. Becoming aware of that stream of thoughts, but sort of observing them without getting swept away.
Yeah.
Without judging them, good or bad.
Just noticing.
Just noticing. And that simple act, that observation, it creates a little bit of distance, a space between you, the awareness, and your mind, the thought machine.
Okay.
And that space, the book says, that's the beginning of freedom.
The language used is pretty strong, though, isn't it? I mean, the source calls this nonstop thinking, this compulsive thinking, not just a habit, but potentially a disease of the mind.
It does. It frames it as this really deep-seated pattern that just drains your vital energy, makes it almost impossible to actually be present.
Right.
Now, it acknowledges the mind is an amazing tool, absolutely brilliant for practical stuff, solving problems, planning,
Sure.
But the moment it takes over, when you're completely identified with everything it throws up and it's running your life unconsciously, that's when it becomes destructive.
That distinction feels critical. Mind as a tool versus mind as the boss. And speaking of the mind taking over, a huge part of how it seems to operate, according to the source, is this total obsession with time.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit mind-bending at first.
Okay.
The book basically says that the past and the future, as we usually think about them, dwelling on them, they're fundamentally mental constructs.
Mental constructs.
Illusions created by the mind. They don't have any actual reality outside of this present moment, the now.
Whoa. Okay, so all the remembering, regretting, worrying about the future, fantasizing, that's all just happening inside my head, not in, objective reality.
That's the core idea. And this leads to the concept of psychological time, which is the mind constantly being busy with memories, dwelling on what happened, what went wrong, or anxieties and plans about the future, what might happen, what you need to do. And according to Tolle, this relentless focus on psychological time is the root cause of, most human unhappiness and suffering.
But wait a second. We need time for practical life, don't we? I mean, scheduling this conversation, knowing when groceries arrive, planning a trip.
Yes, absolutely. And that's clock time. The book is very clear. Clock time is necessary. It's useful for practical living. Learning from the past so you don't repeat mistakes, setting goals, planning functionally. That's all fine.
Okay, so clock time is fine.
The problem isn't clock time itself. It's when clock time morphs into psychological time. When the planning turns into obsessive worry, or the remembering turns into regret or resentment, constantly pulling you out of the only time that's actually real.
Which is the present moment, the now. That's presented as the only access point to reality, to life itself, even the spiritual dimension.
That's the absolute center of the teaching. And, it echoes what many ancient spiritual traditions have pointed towards for centuries, the primacy of the present moment.
Right. The source mentions that Rumi quote, too, doesn't it? About burning up past and future.
Past and future veil God from our sight. Burn up both of them with fire. Yeah, powerful stuff.
It really is.
Because the profound insight here, really, is that nothing that has ever truly happened, nothing significant has ever occurred outside of the now, and nothing ever will. All of reality unfolds right here.
So if the mind creates this time illusion and we get stuck in it, what's driving the mind to do that? Why does it take over like that?
Well, that often brings us straight to the concept of the ego.
Ah, the ego.
Defined here as the false sense of self. It's a construct built by the mind through identification. Identifying with your thoughts, your emotions, memories, possessions, roles in society, reputation, what you've achieved.
So basically anything external or based on form.
Pretty much. Anything the mind can latch onto to build an image of me. And the ego's main drive is just to maintain itself, strengthen itself. It's always looking for wholeness or validation or completion outside the now, always in the past or future.
Like this little persona the mind creates, always needing something else to feel real or solid.
Exactly. And very closely linked to the ego, the source introduces the idea of the pain body.
The pain body. Okay.
This is described as like an energy field within you, an accumulation of all your past emotional pain, old hurts, traumas, grief, anger, resentment that hasn't been fully faced and dissolved. It lives on in your mind and body.
And it can just lie dormant.
It can lie dormant for periods, yes, but then it gets triggered by events or even just a thought that resonates with its old emotional patterns.
And identifying with this pain body, that sounds like where the really heavy suffering comes from.
Yes. According to the source, when you identify with the pain body, you essentially become it. You relive that old pain, and it can drive incredible amounts of drama, conflict, self-sabotage.
Wow.
And the really unsettling part is the idea that the pain body almost has its own primitive consciousness. It wants to survive.
Survive? How?
It feeds on energy, specifically the energy of negative thinking, drama, and resistance to the present moment. It actually likes negativity. It seeks out situations where it can get triggered so it can generate more pain and feed on that energy.
Good grief. It literally thrives on making you miserable. So how on earth do you deal with something like that? This entity of old pain that wants to stay alive.
The key, the source emphasizes again and again, is consciousness, presence. Not thinking about the pain body, analyzing it, but being present with the feeling, observing the raw energy of it in your body, noticing the negative thought patterns it triggers, but without judging it, without resisting it, and crucially, without identifying as it.
So you watch it like you watch the thinker.
Exactly. You shine the light of your awareness onto it. Presence is the opposite of identification. And simply being aware of the pain body, consciously feeling it without getting lost in it, is what begins to dissolve its energy.
Presence. Okay, this word keeps coming up. It seems foundational. How do you actually get there? Access that state. It sounds less like something you do and more like something you are.
That's a great way to put it, and the source definitely makes that distinction. Presence isn't really an intellectual concept to understand. It's an experience.
Yeah.
A state of conscious awareness. It's alert, it's still, it's vibrant, and it's actually available right now. It arises naturally when your attention shifts away from that compulsive thinking.
The mind stream.
And anchors itself firmly in the now, in the present moment.
But how do you make that shift, practically speaking? Especially when the mind is just so loud, so insistent sometimes.
Yeah, that's the challenge. The book offers several practical ways in. You already mentioned watching your thoughts without judgment, just noticing.
Okay.
Another very powerful one is feeling the inner energy field of your body.
The inner body.
Yes, sensing the aliveness, the subtle vibration or stillness within your hands, your feet, your chest, your abdomen. Just feeling that inner life.
Not thinking about the body, but feeling it from inside.
Exactly. Or simply focusing completely on your senses, listening deeply to sounds without labeling them, really seeing what's in front of you without commentary, feeling the sensation of touch. Or, maybe the most accessible for many, is giving your full, undivided attention to whatever you're doing right now, no matter how simple or mundane it seems. Washing dishes, walking, listening to someone.
Like truly being there with the activity, fully immersed.
That's it. These practices, they create gaps in the nonstop thinking, little moments of no mind, stillness, and those gaps, with practice, can deepen and lengthen into a more continuous state of presence. It's presented as the doorway out of that trance of a consciousness and suffering.
You mentioned feeling the inner energy field, the inner body, just now. The Source seems to really emphasize this one as particularly potent, almost like a direct line.
It does. Connecting with the inner body is presented as a really fundamental practice for anchoring yourself in presence. It's not about visualizing or thinking about your body parts.
Right.
It's about directly feeling the life, the aliveness, the energy within the physical form, sensing it from the inside out.
And why is that focus inward on that feeling so important? What does it do?
Well, the inner body is described as your most direct link, a primary access point, a portal even to being.
Being.
Yes, that timeless, formless reality underneath all the forms. The Source also calls it the unmanifested. By directing your attention inward, into that feeling of inner aliveness, and just staying with it, you anchor yourself really deeply in the now. And you connect with that deeper, formless dimension of who you truly are, beyond the mind and the physical body.
So it's more than just a physical sensation. It's about what that sensation connects you to. And the Source makes some pretty big claims about the effects of doing this regularly, doesn't it?
It does make some remarkable claims. It suggests that consistently connecting with the inner body can have profound effects on your physical well-being, too. Things like strengthening the immune system, even potentially slowing down the biological aging process.
Oh.
The implication is that this inner energy field, this aliveness you feel, is deeply connected to your physical vitality. So the spiritual practice has tangible physical benefits. It bridges that gap.
That definitely adds another layer of, well, practical motivation. Now, moving beyond just chasing fleeting good feelings, the book talks about finding something much more stable, right?
Yes, it talks about peace.
Yeah.
And it makes a really crucial distinction between happiness and peace.
Okay, what's the difference according to Tolle?
Happiness, as most people experience it or seek it, is almost always dependent on conditions.
Right, like I'll be happy when I get the promotion or when I meet someone or when things go my way.
Exactly. It's linked to external forms, specific outcomes, favorable circumstances. But because everything external, everything in the world of form is inherently impermanent, it changes. It comes and goes. Any happiness derived solely from those things is inevitably unstable. It's fleeting.
So you can be happy when things are good, but the moment circumstances change, that happiness vanishes.
Precisely. Peace, on the other hand, as presented in the Source, is an abiding state of being.
Yeah.
It's independent of external conditions. Yes. It's the underlying stillness, that inner okayness, a subtle but profound sense of well-being or even joy that's always available deep within, in the now, regardless of what might be happening on the surface of your life.
And the path to that kind of peace seems tied directly to this idea of surrender, which can sound, well, challenging.
It absolutely is challenging. But yes, the acceptance of what is, which is what surrender means here, is described as the key. Perhaps the only key to finding that deep, abiding peace and ending suffering.
Okay.
The Source is really unequivocal about this. Resistance to the present moment, that inner no to what is actually happening right now that is the fundamental source of our unhappiness or suffering.
Right. But surrender can sound so passive to people, like giving up. If something genuinely difficult or bad is happening, illness, loss, injustice, does accepting what is mean you just lie down and don't try to change it?
That's a really important clarification, and the Source addresses it directly. Surrender is not resignation. It's not about being passive externally or not taking action. It means saying an internal yes to the reality of the present moment as it is. It means dropping the layer of inner resistance, the mental commentary, the emotional turmoil about what is. You let go of the inner fight against the isness of this moment.
So you accept the reality internally, even if you then decide to act externally.
Exactly. And the surprising insight offered is that releasing that internal resistance often allows for more effective, more intelligent external action. Because the action isn't coming from a place of fear or anger or desperation anymore. Those are all forms of resistance themselves.
Ah, I see. So the action comes from presence, from a clearer place, not from the ego or the pain body fighting the situation.
That's the idea. Resistance fuels the ego, it feeds the pain body, and it keeps you trapped in suffering. Surrender is letting go of that internal conflict. It's described as aligning yourself with a deeper intelligence, the intelligence of being, and allowing that intelligence to potentially guide your actions.
And the Source connects this surrender directly to dissolving suffering in all its forms.
Yes, it's presented as the core mechanism. primarily for dissolving psychological and emotional suffering. But the principle is suggested to apply even when facing very difficult external situations, like illness or disaster. The suffering isn't solely the event itself, but our internal resistance to the event.
Shifting gears slightly, how does all this apply to, say, relationships? They're often where our biggest challenges and triggers lie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Source views relationships as potentially incredibly powerful spiritual practice precisely because they trigger us so much.
Okay, how so?
Well, often, relationships become playing fields for the ego and the pain body. We seek completion or salvation in another person, we project our needs and expectations, we react defensively, all based on egoic patterns and unresolved pain.
Right, leading to conflict, drama, disappointment.
Exactly. But if you bring presence into the relationship, it transforms. By observing your own reactions, the anger, the jealousy, the neediness, the defensiveness that arise in the presence of another person, you become intensely aware of your own ego and pain body in action. The relationship becomes a mirror.
So instead of blaming the other person for your feelings, you use the trigger to see your own patterns.
Precisely. It's about taking responsibility for your inner state. And the Source suggests that true love isn't the ego's needy craving, but a state of being, of connection, that arises when you're connected to your own inner presence first. True communication becomes communion from that deeper level, not just ego-to-ego interaction.
Dissolving the relationship with yourself, meaning the egoic self-image, seems crucial then.
Absolutely. That's the prerequisite for what the Source might call an enlightened relationship.
So coming back to surrender, just to be really clear, it's this internal yes to the not giving up externally.
Correct. It's accepting the isness of this moment without internal resistance. Action may still be necessary, maybe even more effective action, but it arises from acceptance, not resistance.
Because resistance just fuels the fire of the ego and the pain body, keeping you stuck.
Exactly. Resistance is the suffering in many ways. Surrender is the letting go of that resistance, aligning with the flow of life, with being.
This has been, well, a really deep exploration of some truly profound ideas from the source material.
It really has. And if you distill it all down, the core message from these pages is, in principle, surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
Though admittedly challenging in practice.
Which is?
That the power to transform your suffering to access deep joy, genuine peace, inner vitality, it doesn't lie out there in changing your circumstances or achieving some future goal or even understanding everything intellectually.
Where does it lie then?
It lies entirely, completely within the present moment, within the now.
And this power, this transformation, it's accessible, not through some complex path, but through
conscious presence. Through learning to surrender that inner resistance to what is, moment by moment by moment.
So it really boils down to practice. A constant living practice, cultivating attention, feeling the inner body, watching the mind without getting caught, bringing acceptance to whatever this moment holds.
That's the invitation. It's not just theory. It's a call to engage with your own experience directly.
Okay, so for everyone listening right now, maybe a final thought to carry forward from all this. If, as the source powerfully suggests, psychological time dwelling on past and future is the root of so much of our daily anxiety, regret, stress. What incredible possibilities might just open up in your life right now if you were to truly commit to making the present moment your primary focus, not just occasionally, not just when things are easy, but really, truly consistently orienting yourself towards the now.
Yeah. What would that actually look like, feel like in your experience?
Something to definitely sit with and perhaps explore.